Panozzo, Director at Better Life Mobile. Adrian will share a story of applying an innovative approach to enable social and digital inclusion via affordable mobile plans. A very warm welcome to Adrian.
Hi, Eva, thanks for having us. And thanks for everyone who's joining us online. Now's the time to make money off these people. This was some advice that we were given back in around 2013 by a marketing manager of a large MNO in Australia. We'd been operating for about 18 months. And at that time, we didn't actually realise we'd started a phone company, because back in 2012, my business partner and I just wanted to help a few homeless people living in Melbourne, Australia, get connected. We were volunteering in the homeless community. And back in 2012, we were already using SMS and group SMS, bulk messages to send out advice and connect with homeless people to tell them where they could access food, where they could get access to health support. So we already saw how powerful a phone could be. So we decided to speak to the homeless community and ask them what were their challenges with staying connected, because one week they'd have a phone and then the next week we couldn't contact them, and they were constantly in and out of debt and on and off connection. Based on the insights that they shared with us, we went to every phone company in Australia and said, we know that there's thousands and thousands, probably tens of thousands of people that aren't connected, and they should be, and they could be. And we were rejected by every phone company. So we self-funded a small project. We connected 100 homeless people in Melbourne on their very first phone plan. And I must make it clear, we're not a charity phone company. We're what's called a social enterprise phone company. So even those first 100 homeless people actually pay to get connected with us. What I'll talk with you through the next 20 minutes is how we, I think, accidentally started a phone company by just working with some of the most poorest Australians to give them a deal that they could afford, when their experience dealing with phone companies was they didn't understand the contracts, they were often getting ripped off, or them themselves would be using credit cards or signing up to multiple deals when they had no chance of actually paying for that connection. So back in 2012, 2013, we saw people who were not only homeless, but they'd become phoneless. And that form of poverty of not having somewhere to live, not having a job, the phone bus became another form of poverty. And the word digital inclusion, or the opposite of that, digital exclusion, became quite a common use phrase among social workers and charities. Now, in the Australian context, we do an inclusion index survey every year. And digital inclusion is whether someone can access, afford, and actually has the ability or the understanding to connect and use online technologies effectively. And that index every year gives us a lot of data around all different population types in Australia. So we've been in business now for 10 years, and we were hugely optimistic about the power of a smartphone and how it could change someone's life, particularly someone who was on limited incomes, was unemployed, had nowhere to live. A phone could be a really powerful tool. However, over the last 10 years, we've seen this digital divide actually get wider in Australia. So just like you have gaps in education and people accessing education, just like you have different levels of people with jobs, so you have high skilled, high paid workers, and you have people who get stuck in low paying jobs, people are getting stuck in this cycle of being unable to secure regular and affordable internet or mobile data connection, even in a place like Australia. So let's look at the Australian context. We've got about 25, 26 million people in Australia. So, you know, in some contexts, it's not a lot of people. We live mainly around the edge. So connectivity can be hard when you're traveling around, but we estimate that over 10% of our population are not online. Now, I show the graphic there because in Australia, if you want to deal with the government, if you want to access education, banking, the healthcare system, if you want to look for a job, you probably need to have a smartphone with an operating system that can run an app. The government have for a long time had a digital strategy. They don't want people coming into buildings to access services. They don't want to talk to people on the phone. They want everything to be self-service. Now, some of our most vulnerable people who need support and need to interact with the government are unable to do that. And particularly over the last 3 or 4 years when digital was pervasive because of the pandemic, we had a lot of people who were even more isolated and disconnected. So it's interesting to hear the MVNO Academy guys talking about knowing your market. I'll now tell you about these people. So if you remember the marketing guy who, because we'd had about 1,000 customers connected early in the project, because he told us we had low churn, so our low churn would be less than 1% month to month. He said, these people trust you, Adrian. Now you have their trust. Now is the time to make money off them. This is when I had to explain to this marketing manager that these were the people we were talking about. People living with disability. In Australia, over 1 million people living with disability had no access to the internet in the last 3 months, according to a recent inclusion survey. So people living with disability, their lives can be changed through access to secure data and technology. Yet a majority of them cannot access secure, affordable internet. And I'll talk about that at the end. The homeless people that we started with 100 homeless people. And then we grew to maybe about 1,500 still homeless people. It was only supposed to be a project. We were only going to do this for 2 or 3 months back in 2012. And 10 years later, we're still doing it because people were not only homeless, if they could get access to a phone, they were never connected month to month. And the majority had a struggle to pay their bill in the preceding 12 months. Furthermore, we decided to work with these people to actually, whilst we were the phone company, to actually become advocates for them, to actually make them understand how to make better decisions so that they could access and maintain affordable connection. After about 3 years, we were still doing this project and we had no connections into the telecommunications industry. We have never actually employed anyone who's come from another phone company. And we don't say that because we don't want to employ people from the telecoms industry. It's just that the people we've interviewed and the types of people we have work for us are people that have certain attributes. And it was interesting hearing the MVNO Academy guys talk about the call center costs and stuff, because we aren't digital first. We're probably digital second or third. So we still run a very heavy contact center. And our contact center and our approach goes something like this. If you're a Better Life customer, our customer contact people, they can talk to you for as long as you like. Now, our average calls are 5 to 10 minutes, but if someone is lonely, if we've actually fixed someone's problem and they want to have a general conversation about something else, and we have some boundaries around, them being a customer and we need to protect our staff, but we talk about untimed calls and unscripted support. We comply with all regulations, and in 10 years, we've never had one breach in Australia or one issue with compliance. And we're really proud of that. So yes, we do everything by the book and everything according to regulation, but we allow our contact center to build a relationship with their customer. And in fact, from day one, we constantly analyze the customer's data to make sure they were on the lowest plan. So we talk about downsell, or as we learnt the industry and learnt acronyms like ARPU or revenue per user, our goal is to make the lowest revenue per user. Because if we're making the lowest revenue per user and they're staying connected and they stay with us, then surely that's got to be a winning proposition for all our customers. We've always billed monthly, and that seems obvious, and I think most MVNOs would probably do that now, but a lot of them run 28-day billing cycles. Now, a 28-day billing cycle means you pay 13 times a year. So we're constantly trying to look for a model where we can be as honest and ethical as we can, no tricks. And we've never had a discount. In 10 years, we've never offered a loss leader a promotional discount. We get asked to price match all the time. We don't. We get asked for a volume discount. We don't. And we know that we're not the biggest phone company in Australia. We're probably one of the smallest. But we have never offered a discount, because the way we see it is, if I'm a customer of a company, not just a phone company, and I might have been with you 1, 2, 3, 5 years, and all of a sudden I see you offering this special price and I can't have it, but a new customer who had no relationship can have that special price, how do I feel? And we know that banks do it, phone companies do it, insurance companies do it, but we will never offer a discount to attract a new customer. And when we talk about best deal every time, anytime we've had a move in the price of our wholesale relationship with our MNO, our wholesaler, we move our customers to that better deal. You don't have to ring up about it. You don't have to contact us and request it. And sometimes we'll migrate thousands of customers to a better deal based on the price and the usage, so that they are getting better value. And I'll talk more about our staff, but as I said, no telco experience. Russell, my business partner, and I have never worked for a phone company. Back in 2012, we only expected to do it for 1 or 2 months. And every employee, and we have had some turnover, but every employee that's worked for us, I'll talk a little bit about them now, but they've all come from a variety of industries. And as I said earlier, it's a hard business running an MVNO, but it can be very rewarding. And whilst we have a lot of our customers who struggle sometimes to pay their bill, whilst sometimes they might have mental health issues or have a really stressful life, as I said, we've never had complaints that have resulted in breaches or warnings from the regulators in Australia. And in fact, we probably think we couldn't afford that. But we still see MVNOs and telcos not doing the right thing, and it could be around the administration or compliance. But we take that really seriously. So I'll tell you a little bit about our staff. And it was interesting listening to the MVNO Academy guys. I learnt so much in that session, and I wish maybe I had met them 10 years ago. I don't know if they were doing it back then, but all our staff are permanent employees. They work with us. The day we employ someone, we want them to actually make sure they feel secure. We want them to make sure that we see them staying with us for a long time. Because even though we've been around 10 years, we're Better Life Mobile. Most people don't know who we are. Most people think, oh, you're a phone company, how long are you going to last? So we want to give those staff security. The next thing is we offer flexible work arrangements, and always have. At the moment, none of our staff have chosen to work full time. And in Australia, in the way we run our business, that would be Monday to Friday. Some of them work 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. Some start a bit later because they need to drop off kids at school. Some finish a bit earlier. And interestingly, and this was even before the pandemic, staff worked from home. And the reason they could work from home is because the first 3 years, Russell and I ran it from our house. So we built this from home, then took it to an office, and then as staff came on board, if they lived too far away but really wanted to work with us, we would let them work from home. We feel really bad about how low the pay is for people who provide customer service in telco. But there's not much we can do about what the award in Australia says someone should be paid, but we pay about 10 to 15% above the award. And we're grateful that when someone applies to work with us, one of the first few questions we said, look, we asked them, what would you like to be paid? You know, what's your expectation? And every time we're glad that we're able to say, we can pay you more than that, because that has dignity attached to it as well. So let me tell you about some of our staff. We have a music teacher. We have a nurse. We have someone who used to work in a big retail network in Australia, big bulk shopping centre shop. We have had someone who worked in travel, so sold travel, but they didn't like selling. They liked to help people, and with our staff, no selling required. Actually, the only selling is we like you to downsell. So the people we employ, we look for these things. And it probably sounds cliche and it probably sounds a bit corny. However, we employ on empathy. We employ on people who tell us that no matter what job they've had, if they talk about it with pride and passion, if they talk about the fact that they're curious and interested in people, if they've done anything on the phones before. So we know they need to be a bit resilient to deal with phones. If they're caring, and if they're honest. So if anyone asks questions like, oh, you know, do you guys do commission? Can we sell? Then that's probably not for us. So, and the last thing, and this is pretty standard now, but everyone gets access to domestic violence leave. As soon as we see policy or as soon as we see things talked about, we try and deliver them as quickly as we can into our business. So we support a lot of organisations that deal with domestic violence, and it's only appropriate that we provide those opportunities with within our company. So we have a couple of people who have carer responsibilities. So they work with us, but they can only work a couple of 2 days a week because they have to care for someone in their family. And we find with those people that we work with, they actually are proud, even though all they're doing is selling SIMs and telling people to turn their phone on and off. But we think there's a real dignity in knowing that when you can speak to someone, you have the authority to help them. Very rarely is there an escalation. We run a very flat structure. So in terms of escalation, they don't have to come to me. Rarely would they come to me. So they're allowed to SMS data gift to someone. They're allowed to do an extension. They're allowed to negotiate a plan variation, all those sorts of things. So here's what we've learned over the last 10 years. And we Googled, emailed, tried to call every phone company in Australia. And here was what we said to them. We said this: we know a lot of homeless people, and sometimes they're your customer and sometimes they go to your competitor. And we know they cause you grief and they know you probably owe you money. But they've told us what they can pay. They've told us what they want to use their phone for. And we've actually got a network through social workers, trustees, financial counsellors, charities, community health centres. We've got all these people who want to get the people they're helping on a phone. So the MVNO guys talked about point of sale. We have hundreds of channels around Australia, social workers who, not saying they work for us, but together we solve that problem. We work with state trustees. They're the government body that manages money for people who can't manage money for themselves. And even when we got to a few thousand customers, we went back to the MNOs and said, hey, this is too hard for us. And we actually stopped for 11 months. We said, we can't do it. We never meant to run a phone company. And again, they didn't want it. They said things like, oh, we really don't want those people ringing our call center. Oh, they won't pay. They'll rip us off. And there was still no insight that these people could be customers and could be loyal customers and through word of mouth. So that's the other channel, our social worker network and our word of mouth. Because our cost of acquisition, and it's hard to tell because we don't have money to spend on marketing, we think it's somewhere between $0 and $10 to $15 a customer. And when we speak to people in the industry, they go, how can that be true? And it's like, well, we don't have money to spend on marketing. We can't actually compete with celebrities and billboards and buses or trains. So we don't spend it. So we know we're not big, but for 108 months, we grew month on month, every month. Now, not big, but we slowly grew. Our ARPU is not massive, but we have no debt, privately funded. We've never had any government support. We are not a charity. We're what's called a social enterprise, which obligates us to give at least 50% of our profits back to our projects. So I'm going to finish up, but I'm going to talk about probably our experience and how we've ended up in a place like MVNO Nation, which we're so grateful for, because we want to be part of this industry. We're now passionate about it. But about 3 years ago, we started to get invitations for awards. And because we didn't know the industry, we thought they were scams. So we would not reply, or we had a comparison site and we spent no money with this marketing site, but they said, oh, you guys are this finalist, and that's that gold badge. And people would say, oh, you have to spend money to win awards. And we'd say, well, look, they've invited us. If there's a catch, we won't accept the award. And then we would then go to our MNO and say, look, is this legit? And they go, yes. Or is this legit? And they go, yes, that's the one we do. So to finally get some recognition was not important for us because we have no profile in telco. But hopefully what's important is that telco is a really powerful tool for social change, and that we can market to people who don't have a lot of money in a different way, and we can do it with dignity so they stay connected. And there's no shame in not having the latest iPhone. There's no shame in not being able to be on a fancy large plan, that when they go into a kiosk or a shop, that they're not sold multiple contracts. That we take the time to ask these people questions with dignity so that they're given a product and a service that they can afford. Because one of the very first soup kitchens, so I know we're going globally here, but you know, like where homeless people go for food. So they might be 2 hours a day where they open a kitchen, and at this place, 400 people each day would go to get something to eat. And Russell and I, so Russell's in there in the photo, so we would just, because we knew a lot of them, so we would just talk to them, and if they wanted to try a sim, we'd get them on a sim. So I don't think this statement is true, but it shows how powerful a smartphone is to someone who is on low income, is disadvantaged, and has barriers to participating in daily life. The person running the soup kitchen said, this is the best thing to happen to this place in 20 years. I don't think that's true. I think making sure they've got enough food every day, making sure they've got places to send people to sleep at night, and making them get the right health care. But at least we finally got people to understand the power of a smartphone. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here today. I loved seeing the MVNO Academy talk, and I've taken a lot of learnings around it, and hopefully you've enjoyed our session. And if anyone has any questions, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Back to you, Eva.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Such a strong business purpose, very inspiring. So congratulations. We do have a couple of questions. I think some of the questions have been already answered during your session, but we've got two more here. Someone says, well done, great effort. Are you looking to replicate your model outside of Australia?
We get asked that. We do get asked that a bit. And our answers, we're not sure, because we never meant to do it in Australia. We never meant to do it in where we live. What we are open to is we share what we do, and there's very little commercial sensitivities about what we do, right? So, you know, we sell phone plans. So we're happy to share. We're happy to understand if the conditions that work for us in Australia. So, for example, in Australia, the government pay a welfare payment, and we're one of the only phone companies that actively is approved by the government, and we get paid each fortnight for people who are on welfare payments. The other phone companies won't want to do it because we get charged 99 cents for that transaction. So I suppose we took the time to understand this niche, where most people, there's a stigma, or there's a bad feeling about, you know, poor people, or, you know, that they don't want to deal with them, but they're consumers. They just don't have a lot of money.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. There's a question relating also to marketing. You did mention that you don't have big marketing budgets like other companies. The question is, where is your route to market, and how do you reach your customers? What are the different communication channels that you use?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we do a little bit on Google. and I hope I hope I'm not embarrassing myself. We spend about $200 or $300 a month on Facebook. That's it. We have large networks of, in Australia, they're called financial counsellors. So they're people who help people to put their budgets together, social workers, health centres, mental health places, hospitals. So we have all these frontline workers, all these people, people coming out of prisons. All these people talk about us and refer their customers to us. So, I know it sounds too basic, but it's in business school, word of mouth. Get a customer by word of mouth and keep them. And so we know we've never had spikes in growth, but and we're not accountable to shareholders. So look, our situation is a bit different, and we don't. So for the MVNO guys, we don't have an exit strategy. We just want to keep doing it. So yeah, those networks have been really good, and government. So because we started with people and the way we work with disadvantaged people, we now have projects in the environment, for example. So, there was big bushfires in Australia. So we now provide some of the connectivity for projects when they're trying to do recovery in some of those areas. So I think because people think they can trust us, and I don't think we're expensive either. Like we don't put a price premium on being, a social product. Sometimes people put a premium on a social product and say, oh, because we do good, pay a bit more. We try and meet the market where we can, but yeah, I think that's how we've done it, and that's how we'll keep doing it, I think.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring. Thank you for joining us today and sharing the story. I don't see any more questions. So thank you for now.
Thanks, Eva. Thank you, everybody.